Kansas City is nicely set up into the future. You were telling me the real pressure is on San Francisco to get it done on Sunday.
Greeny, their window is right now. A year from now, Brock Purdy's going to get a massive raise now because, again, he was a 7th-round pick. So next year, he's going to fill in the blank. 45 million a year, 50 million a year, 55, whatever that number is, it's a massive leap from where he is now, guys. So what's going to happen is that's got to come from someone or someone's. So someone like Brandon Ayuk, he's going to graduate. They're not going to be able to trade for the Chase Youngs of the world during the season. So Kyle Shanahan has a massive amount of pressure on him because this is going to be their best window for a while. Won't say they still won't have a good nucleus, but compared to where Kansas City is, they have a lot more bills to pay, most notably with their quarterback.
Okay, so that's a really interesting point. And then, Jeff, we got into, and Hembo and I did it on the radio the other day, this might be a Hall of Fame game for Kyle Shanahan. He wins this game with the things he's accomplished. That could get him on the road towards the Hall of Fame. And you brought up a point of you think works in his favor.
Yeah, I think when you think about Brock Purdy, this could be his Patrick Mahomes, right, for Andy Reid. And I say it this way. He couldn't get over the hump at Andy Reid. He was 11-13 before Mahomes comes in. Now, Mahomes takes it and elevates this thing. So if they found their guy, he went all in on him. Shanahan went all in on Purdy. He's your guy. All of a sudden, you win the Super Bowl. You now become what Andy Reid was 6 years ago to what Shanahan now is, a Super Bowl champion who's gone twice and with 2 different teams.
Are you comparing Brock Purdy to Patrick Mahomes?
I just did. And I didn't say as a player, but I said as what could help his coach go from a really good coach to a Hall of Fame coach overnight.
Can I quote Jeff Saturday?
Yeah.
Are you high?
Yeah, seriously.
Are you high?
You're on that good.
On the good.
As Jeff would say, he's on that good. Or as Marcus would say, he's on that yak. Go ahead, Marcus.
On that yak. Well, look, unfortunately, Jeff, I know you excited and it's about to be the Super Bowl and you're a big Brock Purdy fan. The problem is Patrick Mahomes still going to be in the NFL while Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy trying to beat Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. That's the issue that they're going to run into. I do think the quarterback has elevated Kyle Shanahan. He potentially can do something, even though it wasn't in a head coaching capacity that Matt Ryan wasn't able to do. And I thought Matt Ryan was a really high level, really good quarterback for a long time. But this would be a big statement. San Francisco has been at the brink, and it's been the quarterback which we all thought has been the weakest link as far as how these teams have been built. One year was about the defense. It was about the run game. We've had all of these other things. And that's why I go back to what we said when we were having the conversation about Brock Purdy, is that his biggest detriment has not been the way he's played. He's played phenomenal. His biggest detriment is that we've seen San Francisco get to these levels before on a consistent basis and play at a very high level. And the question is, will he have what it takes to get him over the top? On these past 2 playoff games, it speaks volumes and it says yes because he's been super clutch. Yep. But as far as him becoming the new Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid just told you he ain't going nowhere, man. And we know Patrick Mahomes ain't going nowhere.
Today. Let me say this. Because I'm going to be mocked. Okay. Let me just say this. If this guy, if we just blanked out, you didn't know who it was, and we blanked out a second year, why don't we pull up a little graphic that I had Himbo throw me today from Joe Burrow and Brock Purdy's second year. Mm-hmm. We talked about he's clutch, Burrow's clutch. Guess what? He's got 3 great receivers and a good running back in Cincinnati, but we don't talk about what he's got. Look at these 2 dudes and their numbers. So what I'm saying is we call people clutch, we call them whatever it is, system guy, not a system guy. It's all because guys like Mike T let him get to the 7th round instead of being in the first. If he was in the 1st round, Mike T's beating the drums on, this guy's a league MVP. He's a 7th round. It's, we don't want somebody to back into success. Let's make sure he earns it continuously.
That's insane. Can I just say this? Joe Burrow was the first pick in the draft by a team that had the first pick in the draft because they were awful and had been awful forever.
They were
and Brock
terrible.
Purdy, regardless of where he was drafted into a situation on a team that is a well-oiled machine.
What was Patrick Mahomes drafted into?
And Patrick Mahomes has turned into the best quarterback
ever. But what was
ever.
He can't get
is
there
the
until he
perfect
takes
storm.
the first step.
I am saying that I think there's going to be a very interesting discussion and decision when Brock Purdy gets to the time where he might get paid $50 million about whether or not you let him graduate and figure out something else.
No, that's exactly right, because if you pay a B player A money and all of a sudden Brandon Ayuk's gone and George Kittle is gone, Brock Purdy's going to look a little bit different. And by the way, Joe Burrow now has to go prove what Patrick Mahomes did, because when T. Higgins isn't there, Joe Burrow's going to have to elevate his game, which I'm not saying he won't. But the definition of greatness, as we talked about earlier, is make those around you better, something Patrick Mahomes has done. And to Greedy's point, we don't know if Brock Purdy can.
But again, if all you're doing is comparing him to Patrick Mahomes,
no, I'm not.
Nobody meets the standard.
I'm not comparing him to anyone.
Is Burrow, it's Stafford, it's whatever it is. This dude has done it in 2 years, but we don't want to give them any credit for the success they've had.
I'm not saying I don't want to give him
just
any
put a
credit.
graphic
I'm
up
just not
comparing
giving
him to Joe
are.
Burrow.
You're
as
all
much credit as
haters.
you do. You were telling me this morning the 49ers might be in just the opposite position.
That's exactly right. You know, Green, we could sit here and argue, what's Brock Purdy worth? 35, 40, 45 million. It's substantially more than $1 million a year. A year from now, that's the bill they have to pay. So therefore, when you look at the way they're constructed, a guy like Brandon Ayuk, he will graduate in a year. And then when you saw what they've done, go trade for Christian McCaffrey a year ago. Go trade for Chase Young. Those days are over. They're going to have to win with a lot more younger players. And I think what we saw in the championship game, Detroit is this, San Francisco's here. And I think it's easy to see in a year, Greeny, because of Brock Purdy's contract, their window is getting small.
Of course, there is the alternative to that, and that is, to use a term you use all the time, letting a player graduate from your program. We had the question earlier this week about whether Brock Purdy's success could potentially change the way teams approach the draft. You have a couple of different ways of doing things. One of them is you take a quarterback, and if he winds up being Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes, well, then there's nothing to talk about. But if you wind up drafting a good player, do you wind up wanting to give that guy $50 million just because that's the going rate for quarterbacks these days? Or do you, to use Mike's term, let him graduate, take another one, and live your life with quarterbacks who make significantly less money and put huge rosters around them?
I think it's very difficult to win that way once you find a guy. So, like, when you say you find a guy, I think Kyle Shanahan has found his guy in Brock Purdy. I really do. I think when you talk about guys who are like, well, is he clutch? Well, Shanahan's great offense has never, they were 0-for when they were down, 7 or more in the fourth quarter. They were 0-for with these type of halftime deficits. Guess what? Purdy brought them back. Himbo and I look at this, the only offense in Kyle Shanahan's career that gets close to the offense of this year is Matt Ryan's MVP year.
Right.
All right. That is a massive. So when you talk about anybody can run this offense, if you compare his second year to Joe Burrow's second year.
I understand.
And he's got them to the Super Bowl. He got him to the championship game, gets hurt. Then he gets them to the Super Bowl, and he makes it happen. Look at the screen right here between those two guys in comparison.
I understand
one is
that.
what? The first pick in the draft?
Right.
And one is
the last pick in the
Mr.
draft.
Irrelevant.
So, but
if he looked like Burrow, if he was drafted somewhere near Burrow, if he was 28th in the first round, you guys would be lauding this dude, talking about he's an MVP, his future is so bright, you got to wear shades, all the nonsense that I hear sitting at this desk about potential and all that. All the dude has done was produce, but we act like production falls in Shanahan's offense. And what I would say is Burrow walked in with 3 great receivers. Patrick Mahomes walked into Andy Reid and a playoff team, but we don't put any of that. Dak Prescott walked into a great run game, but we're gonna say, oh, because he walked into Shanahan,
No.
this dude is garbage and doesn't deserve his money.
First off,
I don't get it.
I would never make a reference to a song that old. Second of all, and of more significance, this team, I'm not saying they were as good, but we saw Jimmy Garoppolo, who at this point is pretty close to not being in the league, take this team to an NFC championship game and a Super Bowl, and they were right there to win it in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
I'm not saying Brock Purdy isn't better. I'm saying this team is good enough with lesser quarterback play to be that level of good. Marcus, go.
Gee, I don't understand why this is so hard for Jeff Saturday and the Brock Purdy fan club to understand. There is no situation that you can tell us about another quarterback that's going to be comparable, Jeff. The Cincinnati Bengals, nobody went to the games before Joe Burrow showed up, bro. Like nobody thought that team would be anything. When we start talking about Brock Purdy, it's not, to me, this is for me, Marcus Spears. It's not about his individual talent. The dude has proven that he can play at a high level. I'm gonna say this, and I hope I don't have to say it anymore, but I will if we get to this point in the conversation. The detriment to Brock Purdy is the system and the situation he's in more than people talking about it. And it's the reason of what Greeny just said. It's bro, we've seen this team in these situations. We've seen it. I was talking about it. I was like, people were like, well, what does he have to do? Nothing from an individual standpoint. He's already proven that he's been a better option than the guys we've seen in the previous iteration of this offense. But he also is it's not a negative, but he's a victim of what the San Francisco success has been. When we try to have this conversation about where this team is and the heights that they've been to. The only thing, Jeff, and this is reality, this is not my speculation about who Brock Purdy is or what he can do. The only difference that Brock Purdy can delineate himself from is winning a Super Bowl. Yeah. Because we've watched the San Francisco 49ers do this without him before he showed up.